and welcome back. This is the FoodTaku podcast. I'm here.
Perfect.
It's
It is
early.
early.
I'm tired. I'm here today with my co-host Paul, and we are joined by special guest David. David,
Hello.
why don't you introduce yourself just a little bit?
All right. My name's David. I'm from the Tokyo Fresh podcast. So another. Weirdly enough, I don't live in Tokyo anymore, but I did at the time.
Another friend who lives in
Yes.
Japan. Yay. Yes. So today we're going to talk about, since we've got another Japanite person living here, what it's really like to live in Japan as a foreigner. The truth.
I got a podcast for
Right.
you.
Yeah,
150 episodes of
The
me talking
unbridled
smack.
truth. Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great topic, especially since things are opening back up. So in the previous episode, we talked about things
Yeah.
not to do when you visit and some things to do when you visit. So this might be an interesting bridge of like people who may be thinking about coming out there to work or living out there for part of their time per year or whatever it might be.
And it's really different, you know, when I talk to people who live in Japan, I always hear, David, let me know if you think that this is true. People always tell me visiting Japan is really, really fun. Living in Japan is like not the same at all. Like it's fun, but it's not like as fun as being a tourist here.
No, definitely not. It's completely different. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, you're here to work. It's not like, yay, let's onigiri sushi, let's go, yeah. It's not at all like that. It's like, oh shit, I gotta get up at 6 a.m. and go to work.
I think that can be.
Yeah, the struggle is.
I think
very
that could
real.
be said for anywhere you visit on vacation mode. You know, like if we go on a vacation to whatever European country and you're like, oh, it's glorious and this and that and the other thing, and then if you move there, I feel like it would be the same kind of. Oh, it's work day. It's the the rose tinted glasses, right? Kind of effect.
Yeah,
go away.
yeah.
I'm curious to hear because you do hear some of this. I don't really know what it's like living in another country or working in another country. So in Japan's case, I hear there's like a ton of bureaucracy and like paperwork involved, and like your David's just like, oh god, I don't even want to think about it. Like,
Let
yeah,
me
like
tell
just
about
please.
the $3,000 in pension I had to pay the other week.
Dude, me too.
What?
Wait,
Yeah.
you tell your story first.
no.
Tell your story.
Well,
It's gonna be therapy session,
So,
isn't it?
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe. So when you come to Japan, you have an option to opt into paying pension. And I asked the person there, I'm like, do I have to pay pension? They're like, well, no, because it's Japan. And they're always going to give you the, well, no, maybe not really. I don't know, but actually I do. And I'm not going to tell you a straight answer.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I won't pay it. Shuffle 5 years down the line, they're like, you owe us $3,000, and if you don't pay us, we're going to take it out of your account.
Seriously?
Forcefully.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, well, or it's like, oh, if you don't pay us, we're not renewing your visa.
Dang.
Oh.
Dude,
Okay.
I had a similar issue actually when I moved here. The place where I work, they kind of set everything up for me. And when it came to choosing insurance, they're like, you can choose the national health insurance or a private insurance. And I was like, oh, is that okay? And they're like, yeah, and we recommend it because if you're not going to be here for more than 5 years, like the kind of thing goes like if you pay into the pension system and you leave before 5 years, it's relatively easy to get that money that you contributed to the pension system out if you like move out of Japan. But if you stay over 5 years, it's really hard to like get that money back. So my job was like, well, you know, you're paying into pension. It can be kind of tricky to get that money back depending on how long you're here. So it's better to just do the private health insurance because you're not contributing money anywhere and whatever. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Little did I know that that was technically illegal, and they were kind of not really supposed to give me that option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there was like a loophole in Japan that they were operating on for a while. And then this year,
It's
Japan
been closed.
Yeah, Japan really put their foot down about like foreigners doing this kind of thing, and my like work was like, oh well, yeah. So it turns out you owe about $3,000, and we need to get you up to speed on it. Yeah, luckily my work paid half of it for me because they have like a system where they contribute half of whatever the like worker has to pay in. But yeah, it was a little bit of a
There's
surprise.
so many systems here too, because there's like, are you a seishain? Are you a kaishain? Are you a contract worker? Are you
yeah.
this? And then every single one of those different types of worker has to have a different visa, or you pay into somewhere else. And it's like, I think a lot of companies, when foreigners come here, they're like, okay, here's what you need to do. And then they go, haha, good luck at the shack show, sucker. And they don't help you at all.
Yeah.
So they send you to City Hall with like, if you don't know Japanese, luckily I did when I came because I had studied beforehand. But like, if someone is coming over here to like teach English or something with no Japanese, and then they're like, oh, you need to go to City Hall and figure out tax documents.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
rough.
It's like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, I barely know how to say konnichiwa, and you're sending me to like some dude asking me about how to pay my,
Yeah.
tax forms.
Yeah. It's really rough. It's really helpful if you come to live here. You really should look like that. I would ask people in the interview, like, what's your onboarding process? Even if it's just like, you're working as like a language, like an ALT or like that kind of a job. Like find a company that will help you with all of that paperwork and stuff, because it's really, really hard to do it by yourself. And like the place I work, they take care of everything. They have someone whose job it is to take care of everything. And I am so grateful
Yep.
for that.
Same for me now. I think it's a lot of just the really shady kind of, I was gonna say black, but that's like a more Japanese term, but like black companies that are just like, they run so close to what is legally legal that it's like a little bit gray and dubious, and they just do it all the time and take advantage of people coming
That's
over because they
wild.
know like, oh, you're gonna stay for a year and then you'll go home and then I never have to deal with you again.
Yeah.
So just basically use
Yeah.
you and toss you to the side. That's
Yeah,
wild. 'Cause,
100%.
Like I remember this was back in 2011. So I visited in '08, and then after that I was like, I would like to work out there for a short period of time, like 1 to 2 years. And the hotel I was working with, since it was with a major chain, it was with a Hyatt, they were like, we can connect you to HR out in, I was going to try to work at the Hyatt Kyoto because it's beautiful property.
Oh.
And
Cool.
they were going to take care of everything for me, all of the paperwork. So the HR there would be my sponsor and then like run me through everything. So basically I would have just shown up and be like, all right, start working, and I'm like, hearing that now and how it's not as apparently not as common, like it's kind of wild. I mean, I kind of wish it would have gone through, but like because of like the tsunami and everything, they didn't hire anybody. So it was that time period. But
yeah,
like
yeah.
that was my only experience with it. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, this is great. So if you want to work out here, you just, find a company who's willing to sponsor you, and then they just take care of you and bring you over. But now, like, is that super hard to find? Like, both of you guys have companies that help you with that.
I think you need to have in my experience, the more qualified you are, the easier it is to find a job that is a little bit more reputable and like wants to do those things for you. I'm really lucky because in the position that I work in, like I'm a teacher, but in Japan, when you say like you're a teacher, most people kind of assume that you just teach people how to speak English, and that's not what I do at all.
Okay.
Like I have a teaching credential. I went,
Same.
and did like a lot of like schoolwork to become a certified and qualified teacher. And so, I teach English, but I teach like English literature and like in a high school with like, we're like reading the Odyssey and stuff like that. It's not like teaching English. So like, because I have those qualifications, I think was a lot easier for me to come by a like really nice job where they really, really take care of me. And my friend, who was my roommate for a while, she moved here and she worked for a company called Berlitz, which is an English like instructing company, and like they teach people how to speak English. But she, had her undergraduate degree, so she had like the education that they were really looking for you to be able to like teach these people. And it's like a long established company, and so they really took care of her and helped her
Is
out.
that the most common thing, is teaching English to work out in Japan?
I think like if you have no other qualifications, then 100% yes. But like if you are an IT professional, you can get jobs that absolutely destroy any wage you would make in any other job as a foreigner.
Ooh,
Like,
cool.
for example, I have, maybe you would know, since you live in Japan. Do you know Payday?
I've never heard of them.
It's like a credit card middleman company that's
Oh.
like shown up in Japan.
Oh.
It's like
I was gonna
legit.
say
Like
that sounds
it's an
very
actual...
shady. Credit card middleman.
So
company.
it's not. So basically, it's like a paying installments
Okay.
thing, right? So if I buy something on Amazon, but like I can't pay for it because I got a
okay.
limit on a
Yeah,
credit
yeah,
card
yeah.
or something,
Okay.
then it's like they will buy it, send it to you, and then you pay them.
Yeah,
in
there's a bunch of
installments
those
through
out
the
here
app or
now,
whatever,
too.
That's
right?
cool. Okay.
But anyway, my friend works for that company, and he makes like something like close to 2 million yen every 2 months.
That's wild.
Whoa. That's
Something
a
like
lot.
that. That's yeah. That's like yeah. He's probably capping like what in a year. That's like easily over
What?
20,000. Yeah, like tons. Like
Yeah, it's a lot. Of money.
an like I think I make like 5 million a year, and he's making 2 in 2 months, right? So it's like if you know what you're doing in an IT thing,
They'll pay you out for it.
and they'll pay you out. And you don't need to use Japanese too often because most of IT stuff is like all the tech manuals are written in English because that's where all the software is made.
I wonder if that's the case for a lot of specialty positions then. So maybe it's, I don't know, forensics, right? Or maybe it's something like that where they bring you over and you would assume that a lot of the science behind that also might be in English, even though a lot of the communications will more than likely be in Japanese. Right. That's I think of specialty positions like that where if you're so hyper specialized, they'll probably pay you a lot to be there too, because the jobs are so finite. Like there's not a lot of people who perform those jobs.
I agree. And I kind of like a little like oddly and unfortunately, I think this is true of many countries, but what Japan is really looking for, like if you want to move to Japan, they're looking for people with like high qualifications, high education levels. You know, you have to have those things to get like a nice job here, or you have to be really willing to like muck it out in the trenches and like really work up and like move to Japan and make that country, like Japan, your home. And I think that's true of a lot of countries. Like everyone wants to attract the really intelligent, really qualified people. But it does kind of suck because Japan is such a, you know, in our community, people love Japan. They love the idea of it. They come here and it's such a wonderful, amazing, like convenient place to live in. And it's so cool and so different and so unique, but it really is kind of hard to exist here, I think, for more than a year or two without that kind of higher level qualification.
Interesting.
It can definitely become, if you're just working at that bottom rung garbage job with no upper momentum, it is soul crushing. Like you don't want to be here anymore. Like regardless of how much you like Japan, I think like a lot of people come to Japan with this pie in the sky idea of what it's going to be. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to teach English and I'm going to be there forever and everything will be hunky-dory. And then by like halfway through year one, they're like, this place is hell on earth and I do not want to be here.
It's such a juxtaposition from what people think of it as being, I think, in a lot of ways, which is very interesting to me because, like Emily just said, we have like a huge, you know, community that like loves the idea of what is out there and like the culture behind it and everything like that. But then when you really think about living in another country, no matter, I think, any of the countries, you have to take into account like the politics there. You have to take into account the living situations there. You know, like I have a friend of mine who is in Berlin and he loves Berlin. He's never going to leave, but he's also like, Paul, I pay 50% in taxes, you know, so all of my half of my paycheck goes to taxes. And out here in the US, like I think I probably pay like 20 to 25%. And so just knowing that like, oh, I'm going to have to pay an additional 25% just to live somewhere. Oh, that's crazy to me. Right. And so I think that it's good to have these conversations because it kind of, I don't want to like crush anyone's dreams because I'm like, go for it. Right. But maybe in this case, it's like tempering expectations in a way and not like 100%. Jumping into something you're not ready for. But what I really like is what you guys both just mentioned. Maybe instead you find a specialized position wherever you're living. So maybe let's say you're here in the States and that specialized position is, let's say, become a doctor or whatever, right? Or maybe become like an educator at a higher level and then move out there, because then you could just you do your time, you quote unquote, do your time here, right? And put in all of the effort here and then say, hey, I'm a professional in my field. I've been doing this for 6 years. And then you just find a sponsor and they take care of you, and then you make a bunch more money doing it, and you get to live in the place you want to live in. It sucks because it's so much more work, but it sounds like if you do that work ahead of time, it makes life easier once you actually get out there. Does that kind of sound accurate?
I think so, but I think the problem with that is that because it takes time in America or whatever country you're in to build up those skills and stuff, you know, like life happens in the meantime,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of hard to be like, I'm gonna put in my case, like three years of working on this credential, and I had like a master's program as well, like so working on my education, doing all of this, and most people that I knew were like falling in love, getting married,
Mm-hmm.
buying their first house or whatever, like kind of normal life milestone stuff. And the reason I moved out here is because I looked at everyone around me and I was like, well, I can either sort of like get ready to settle down and buy a house and start like being really serious about like finding someone to live with for the rest of my life, or I can move to Japan.
Yep.
And I chose to do that, but I don't know if that is something that a lot of people kind of want to do, you know? I don't kind of depends on what your experience is. Like I've been traveling my whole life, so the idea of that was more like exciting to me than anything, but some people really just want, you know, they want to be in Japan for a year or two and then
Mm-hmm.
go back and like return to their life, quote unquote, as normal, you know?
Which I think almost sounds jarring. Like a year or two, it doesn't seem like it's enough time to really build roots anywhere. And maybe that's not what you want to do. Maybe you don't want to build roots, but I could see it as like 5 years, like that's a good chunk of time to say I'm going to dedicate 5 years somewhere. But like in a year, what have you done in that year? Like what can you do in that year? That's really how I think of it. I mean, I don't know if you guys have thought the same thing. So, okay, remind me, Emily, how long have you been out in Japan? Since 2019, right?
Since 2019.
Yeah.
So like 4-ish years. Something
Okay.
like that.
And then David, how about you?
Five for me.
you. Do you feel like at that point you've kind of like finally felt like you've settled a little bit more into the day-to-day, like into the culture and stuff like that? Well, I mean, minus 2 years for COVID.
Yeah.
just like slash 2 years out of that.
As someone who is a foreigner, obviously, I don't think that there is ever a period where you are truly integrated or settled, ever. And that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. Like, I think you can, buy a home, build a family, do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, there's still times where I've been here for 5 years. I'll walk down the street and I'll just see like the signs on a building, and I just have this like moment in my brain where I go, "Oh yeah, I'm in Japan. That's weird." And it happens all like, now not as much as it did before, but like there's just some days where I'm walking, I'm like, "Yeah, that's weird. Like nothing's in English, but I can read," and like it's just weird, and like I don't think that feeling will ever go away, to be honest.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
kind of makes sense.
I kind of feel similarly. Like just the other day, I was walking down the street, and I don't know. I was somewhere with someone. Maybe, yeah, I don't know where I was, but I was just like, "Wow, isn't it crazy that we're here in Japan right now?" Like you don't really get used. You get used to it, and then there's times when you're like, "Wow, I can't believe that I'm here and I'm doing this." But
And
I
you,
think
and then you go, "I've been here for 4 years. What the hell's
Yeah.
wrong?"
I
with
know,
me?"
yeah, but I think COVID really interfered with that in a lot of ways. Like COVID happened for 2.5 years. It's still ongoing. We still wear masks and stuff everywhere, and that really, for me, was difficult. Like now that we're kind of out of it more, I realize how kind of difficult it was because I got here and I had about 6 months of quote unquote normal Japan, and then everything shut down, everything stopped.
Right.
Life sort of stopped, and that was how it was for 2 years. And you make some kind of hard choices and weird choices, and you become friends with people that maybe you wouldn't normally have been friends with or whatever, and you kind of are forced into certain situations depending on your environment and your workplace and that kind of thing. And so now that we're kind of coming out of it, I am excited all over again to be here because it feels like a new, different side of Japan is kind of waking up that I'm experiencing,
Right.
When I go out into Shibuya and I see like tourists coming in, I'm like, whoa, this is weird. It is so weird to see other foreigners out and about. I was in Harajuku and someone asked me for directions to like a shopping department store, and I was like, lady, we're in Harajuku. Like, look around, it's everywhere, man. I don't know what to tell you.
So-
It was
so
just really funny.
In that case, does that feel like it's kind of revitalized a little bit of excitement because like things are starting to open up again, and like does that feel different now than just kind of, I guess, the shutdown, the Great Reset?
For me personally, I had like a good solid year where I just kind of could do whatever
Right.
I want because I knew that I got my job offer like really early, like almost a year out from when I was going. So I just saved up money for an entire year.
Nice.
And when I got here that first year, I went
Hell
wild.
yeah,
I had like
that's what I would probably do.
I had like $7,000 in cash. Just like I remember,
Damn.
I'm in this tiny ass like 1K room, so it's like my bed and my kitchen are in the same room, and I just had like this fat stack of cash of just like Ichiman bills on top of my dresser. And every time I went out, I'm like, I'll just take 2 of those and do
Dude.
whatever
Oh
I
my
want.
God.
Wow.
I burned through like $7,000 in like half a year.
Dude.
Like, boom, like quickly.
I will say, when I visited out there, I had $4,000 for 25 days, and I used it.
Yeah,
I just
I
had
was
a great
gonna say
time.
that doesn't sound like enough to me, to be honest.
Well, I mean, it's like you have to consider. Well, in this case, it was on vacation, so I
Yeah, yeah.
spent it was about 120
Yeah.
bucks a day. But that
Yeah.
was like, for traveling, for drink, food, stuff like that. But
yeah.
Sorry, like
It goes.
For me, it was buying a nice, expensive rice maker.
Oh,
Like,
they're
Such
so
Rushi's nice.
expensive.
if you're gonna spend your money on something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's it.
I'm like,
That's it.
$700 rice maker? Fuck
Oh,
Yeah, hell
700.
yeah.
Let's
Oh
do
god,
it.
like
Yeah.
the one I have downstairs
Yeah.
was like 250, and I was like, that's way too much, right? 700.
It's rice. I can make bread in
Okay,
it.
that's
I can
extra.
do like a whole bunch of other
That's
Dude,
stuff.
that's
extra.
cool. That's super cool.
I know
Oh,
we've been-
man. I have.
Yeah, it's great.
Have an
This is
Instant
this is
Pot.
kind of like it kind of sucks, right? We've been talking for quite a bit about like, oh my god, it's the trials and tribulations, right? And again, because I try to be, I feel like I'm a very optimistic person, right, all the time, like, which is sometimes to my detriment. There has to be good on the other side of all of that, right? Otherwise, you guys would just leave. So
Right.
you're free to leave whenever you want, realistically, as long as you can find work somewhere else. So in that case, what's like the few things or the one major thing that's made you want to stay? Right?
Well, you're right. I mean, there is a lot of. I know you get anyone
Or is it a
who
lot
lives
of the
in
little
Japan.
things too? It doesn't have to be like the one big thing.
I think it's a combination, but like get anyone into a room who lives in Japan together with other people who live in Japan, and they'll just complain. Like that's just like a thing. That's just a thing that we do. There is.
You know what sucks?
Yeah.
This.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But I
It's
agree.
true. It sucks ass.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just like to complain because there is a lot here that is difficult. It's just different, right, from the country that you're from originally. But there's so much good about living here. For me, though, I would say that the big thing that keeps me here, and this is like contentious amongst my family. They want me to move back to California really, really badly, and I feel horrible because I don't feel ready to move back yet. And the thing that's really keeping me here is like I have a really just good group of friends that I love being with and hanging out with. And so for me, it's that kind of community aspect. And these are people that I definitely would not have met if I had stayed in California. It's like a vibe and an ease that I have found with very few other friend groups in my life. I don't know. I have really good friends all around. But yeah, I just love the people that I hang out with. I love working with, I work on like projects with my friend Joe and stuff like that. And we just have such a good time together. And so for me, that's been something that's really, it kept me here is like the people that I've met for sure.
What do you got, David? How about you?
I think for me, I've always explained it, people like, oh, there's so many like bad things about Japan. I've always explained it like Japan is a place where it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? If you can get past all the tiny things that just poke at you every day,
yeah.
you'll be fine. But I think one of the things, and I agree with Emily, like one of the things is having that group of friends. I think what most people who leave, the reason that they leave is they don't have that community.
Yeah.
They've come over on jet or something, been stuck in like Gifu or Gunma or wherever, and they're like the only foreigner there. And it's like, if you are not the type of person who is outgoing or wants to try and make friends or knows Japanese, you're gonna have a real hard time. Like it's hard as an adult to make friends. It
It
really
is,
is.
Yeah.
And now it's doubly as hard because they don't speak the same language as you. And they're also like maybe like, oh, weird foreigner. Like, do I want to talk to them? Right? Like,
Yeah.
there's some apprehension there as well. And I think that is probably the same reason why I'm staying is just my friend group is why I want to be here.
Yeah.
Like, I have just a good set of friends that I would never have met. Like, the day I came and we went to my original company's first meeting was the day I met those people. They're still friends with me. I mean, I run a podcast. Paul, you met
yeah.
Jordan. You know him, of course. I met him the first day I got here. We are still friends 5 years
That's
later.
That's
wild, yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Right? So
and it almost sounds like a
I feel
camaraderie, right? Like we're in
Yeah,
this,
of
we're in
course.
this together kind of thing.
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. But on the flip side, though, there are some foreigners who like I want no business with you at all.
Yeah. yeah. There's some interesting people who come here. You get a really interesting, I've gone on a lot of weird dates with people here. There's some like weird people here.
So
For
the next
sure.
episode is going to be dating in Japan episode.
Yeah. Oh God, I have stories. But I would say, like, you know, I think I totally agree with David here. Having friends, having a community here is so important. And I think that's true if you move anywhere. There was kind of like a trend going around on TikTok a little bit of people like romanticizing, like quitting their whole life in America or whatever and moving to Europe, like moving to London or something like that. And that's all fine and good and dandy. The problem is most people really need a community to feel happy and to feel good. And by community, I mean like people to talk to and commiserate with and complain with and like share stories with and that kind of thing. And some people find that totally online, which is cool, and then they're happy just going through their life, their day-to-day life, and then all their friends are online, which is awesome. But I think a lot of people really need at least like one or two people in person that they
Yep,
can kind
100%.
of be with. And it's hard if you move to any country. That's always like the problem. You have to be open and like put yourself out there, put yourself in uncomfortable situations to meet people and to do stuff you wouldn't normally do. And I'm terrible at meeting people for the first time. I tend to be just like really really reserved, kind of. I wouldn't say shy, but I just like to kind of keep to myself a little bit until I know people a little bit better. And I'm actually really like glad that I met my friend Joe like one of the first couple days that I moved here, because he is like the most outgoing person in the extreme. He's friends with absolutely everybody, and that is good for me because I kind of just like follow along and I'm like, yeah, Joe's my friend, and so you're my friend too, and now we're all friends. And so, but you kind of have to like find a way to cope with that, needing people in your life for sure to be successful.
I think it's an interesting dynamic because like I experienced that after leaving my hometown for the first time, moving from San Diego to Oregon where we are now, and this was 5 years ago that we did this. And it's granted you're still English speaking, so it's not that big of a barrier. But it was like leaving your childhood friends, like everybody's kind of moving away from each other. And when you're 30 and you're trying to like build new relationships as an adult, I found the thing that helped me the most is I really heavily leaned into the nerd stuff I enjoyed. So like I have a really good group of friends now that we text like all the time from meeting them at Magic the Gathering nights. Like I was like, you know what? I've been watching way too much Magic the Gathering content on YouTube during the lockdown. And I bought a bunch of cards, and I just found a local game shop, and I went and I sat down at a table and I started playing games with random people, and then we hit it off, and now we're like meeting once a week and just going and having a drink and playing cards and stuff, right? I think it might be harder out there, but I'm like, is that something you guys have tried? Like trying to find just like a random, like a running group, right? Or a hiking group, whatever it might be. Is that even a thing? Like, I don't know if that would be a thing out there.
It is a thing. The only issue is that, at least in my opinion, is that it also attracts a lot of weirdos who are just they're not there to do the thing that is intended by the group meetup. Like they have ulterior, they couldn't care. Like if you're going to Magic and you told them like, hey, there's going to be like one girl there, they'd be like, sweet, I'm there, let's go. And it's like, dude, you suck. Like I don't.
That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of is hit or miss a little bit because like leaning into your hobbies is a great way to meet people and like go to those kind of interest groups. But um, I think the most success is when people find to like try to find these things within like the Japanese community, and that's kind of the difference of like the foreigner community versus the Japanese community. Like I have a friend who is a musician here, and she went and joined a taiko drumming like
Oh,
company,
hell yeah.
like real like a real they've been around for years and years and years, and it's all pretty much all like Japanese people, and she goes and they all speak Japanese and she practices her Japanese and bangs on the drums and stuff with them. And it's like really cool. I've been to one of her performances. It's really amazing. And she loves doing that because it gets you out of this like very insular foreigner community that we're kind of stuck in,
Hmm.
and interacting with real people. So that's really, really fun. And she's made so many friends from that. But if you're trying to stay in the foreigner pool, what I've kind of noticed, especially when you're trying to make friends with people, like a lot of people move here with their spouses or their girlfriends or boyfriends or like their significant
Yeah.
other, whoever that may be. And so a lot of people kind of have a built-in friend already. And the people who don't have a built-in friend already are either even I moved here with a friend. I made my old roommate move with me because I because I knew that it would be hard to find friends. But I feel like a lot of the people who come here are people who are either like really exceptional, risk taking, adventure seeking, fun loving, outgoing people, or people who didn't really maybe totally fit into their own country in a
Mm,
way, and they're kind of trying something out that's new because they think that maybe it'll be better.
interesting.
And which is sort of like hit or miss, right? Like
Yeah.
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 sometimes
I
maybe.
There are
Yeah.
some people who think like Japan will be like a panacea for all their issues. Where it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, this is real bad at home and this is real bad at home, but I'll go to Japan and everything will be fine.
Mm.
But it's like, no, now you're playing on hard mode now because now you have the exact same problem in a foreign language with no help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. I think one thing that I notice in I'm curious to see the difference it will be for when I visit, because now like I have friends out in Japan or people I consider friends. It's like, so if I come out there and visit, it's like, hey, David, Emily, we're gonna go get drinks and food and go hang out and do all this other stuff. Like when I went out there solo though, I told myself and I was 22, right? So I told myself, I was like, I am not going to stop myself from having fun. So instead of being very reserved or whatever from like working in a kitchen and stuff like that, I was like, nope. The chances that I see any of these people ever again are less than zero, right?
Yeah.
Granted, I'm not going to be an idiot. I'm trying to be very respectful and try to honor as many traditions as I can. But like, if I go to a bar, I might just strike up a conversation either with the bartender or the person next to me or whatever it is. I went to like random nightclubs, just popped in and see what's going on and do a little jig on the dance floor.
Oh
And
man, when
Yeah.
when were you
This
here?
is 2008.
You were here in.
Dang.
Was Gas Panic still alive in
I
2008?
have no idea.
Because that place was just.
But I will say, like, the thing was, though, what I experienced is the more open I was, the warmer the reception was, right? Maybe because they're like, oh, look at this dumb foreigner having a great time, right? But, like, I remember I was in, what's the really expensive area of Tokyo that kind of is like the nightlife Ginza, right?
Ginza,
Roppongi.
Oh,
Roppongi.
no, Roppongi. It was Roppongi.
Roppongi.
I was in Roppongi. I was a little bit buzzed because I just like had made drinks with a bartender because I'd asked him for a drink and he didn't
Hey.
know what it was. So
Cool.
he just invited me behind the bar and I like made it with him and we were just doing.
That's awesome.
It was very degenerate and it was amazing. And I just like went to go get what is it? Is it not sukiyaki? The barbecue. Oh my god. Why am I
Yakiniku.
yakiniku? Why am I like brain farting right now? Right? It's been a day.
It's been a
For
day.
those of you watching, I literally just came from a convention, so I apologize. But like, I went to a yakiniku place, and it was a place where, if you came with like 2 or 3 people, they gave you your own table. But if you came by yourself, you had to sit like a communal table. And so
yeah.
it was a table of 4. And I sat down. There was like one guy next to me who maybe was solo because the other 2 guys were both wearing like the same suit tie looking thing. And the guy next to me spoke English really well. And I remember having a conversation with him. So we're just talking and grilling up meat. And then he started talking to the other 2 guys. And then we all started drinking because they were ordering stuff. And like maybe one of them was the boss. And like, I just remember an excessive amount of beer and food. And we were in that smoky joint where it was under, it was like a basement kind of place, and there's no ventilation and just like a smoke layer of meat, right? And it was like 2 a.m. by the time we were all done. Yeah, I was probably there for 3 hours, and I tried to like get my wallet out, and the dude's like, no, I'm paying. I was like, yes, this is great. Thank you. Right. And I actually had quite a few experiences like that. And I don't know if it was because I was so open and just being like, if you don't jive with me, that's cool. Like no harm, no foul. But I'm also not going to be very brazen. I just won't be closed off, if that makes sense. Have you guys kind of experienced anything like that? Like the more open you are, maybe the more receptive people are?
I know more than me. Jordan is that person.
Just talk to everybody.
His superpower is like within 5 minutes he's their friend. Like it doesn't matter who it is. And I'm like the polar opposite of that, and I think that's why we work well together. But yeah, I'm not usually that kind of person. Like if I'm going somewhere alone, it's because I'm going somewhere alone.
Right. How about you, Emily?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, to your point, Paul, I do think that people here, like, there's an expectation for everything in Japan. There's an expectation for everyone. Everyone, should work, act, behave, like respond in a certain way. Food should look a certain way. It should taste a certain way. Like things should be a certain way. And I think that when foreigners come to Japan, there is a little bit of an impression here too of like how foreigners should be. And what Japanese people expect from Americans is exactly what you described: outgoing, genial, friendly, like welcoming, smiling, making a little bit of a fool of themselves. And I think when that's what they see, like, I think that I mean, obviously some people don't like foreigners very much and don't like that, but I think that it is a novelty to the point where people, if they want to interact with you, they think it's kind of fun to have those conversations with you. And for a lot of people, it's a chance to practice English because pretty much everyone in Japan takes English as a language in school. It's like required by the government, but no one
it's like
has
me
like
taking
such
3
a
years
chance
of
to
Spanish.
use it all the
Let's
time.
be honest. Yeah,
exactly.
I learned more Spanish
exactly.
working in a professional kitchen than I did in high school. Like,
yeah, dude, same. So I think it might like tie into that a little bit. Like people like it here when you kind of act according to what they expect you, or like how they expect you to act. And when they see that, it's kind of rewarding for them in a sense, and they know how to interact with you. Like they know what the expectations are a little bit. Whereas if you're, of course, if you just want to go somewhere and be quiet and do your own thing, like to David's point, that's obviously fine too, and no one's gonna bother you or be mad at you or anything like that. But I do think that if you go that extra mile to be that kind of person that's just happy, outgoing, whatever, you'll find people who want to talk with you. Like people try to come talk to me all the time in the grocery store. Like I'll just be staring at the salts and trying to decide which salt is the best salt for me, literally. And I'll have people come up to me and try to like strike up a conversation and help me choose the best salt. Literally, I've had that like exactly happen before. And so yeah, it just kind of, I think depends on the situation, depends on where you are and who's around you.
Right.
But yeah.
I've always noticed that when I personally travel, showing a genuine interest in the culture and the people goes a long way, and it just becomes like more of a matter of respect for like, or just trying to show respect. The last trip we did abroad was in Scotland, and I remember we were in Inverness, which is kind of northern Scotland, I believe, and it's a smaller town, still very beautiful. Rachel and we popped into a pub at 11:30 in the morning, because that's what you do. And we were drinking, and the bartender, his name was Peter, amazing dude. I could barely understand because he had such a like strong accent. And we were drinking next to a 74-year-old man named Dudley, who was very very drunk, and it was amazing, But like we were just interested in what they did, right? Versus them like us telling them what we did. We found out Dudley was like an expert woodworker who built ships for movie sets, and like Peter so cool. has owned this bar with his family for like 30 years in Infant. Like it's just like, I love hearing that stuff, but I think it always has allowed people to then open up to you and just like, you're like, okay, but also we're speaking English, even if they have a heavy accent. So that's kind of that's probably another barrier that I would think is pretty big in Japan.
There is some of that too, and like there's regional dialects as well. Like those are. I went on a trip last weekend to Fukuoka, and one thing that weirdly tripped me out because I didn't expect it to happen was I went to go take money out of the ATM, and you know how like when you take money at the ATM, it's like chotomate kudasai, we're getting your whatever, right? But it spoke in Fukuoka Ben, like the Fukuoka accent, and I was like, what?
Interesting.
I was like, I have no idea what this thing just said.
That's so funny. Oh my
and like
god.
same thing when you go to like Aomori as well. Like Aomori Ben sounds like Tsuguru Ben sounds like French. So like they're like blah 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 this, and you're like
That's
and I'm like
so...
I have no idea what
You're like, what just happened?
what you just said.
Oh my gosh.
It's like
that's
I heard
so
fish
funny.
and yes and okay, but yeah.
I had no idea. That's crazy. My Japanese is not amazing, and I tend to just like tune anything out unless someone's speaking directly at me, which I know is terrible. But when you live here long enough, you just find ways to kind of get by. That's amazing, though. I love that. I feel like if we were in America or something, I doubt that they would change the voice at the ATM to be like regional specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so weird. It'd be like
Well,
it'd be like going to an ATM in like I don't know, like I'm going to where's a good place? Minnesota. I'm going to Minnesota. And then you go to the ATM and then suddenly it's a Texas accent.
It's
You're
like-
like,
I don't think they would do that because
Yeah.
a lot of them too are like those robot voices. Like, please
right.
answer your
well,
car.
this was too, but for whatever reason, it was a robot
so that
voice.
has to be on purpose.
Yes,
it's
100%.
100% on purpose, right? But also maybe it's
That's
because
so funny.
like it's just common for the area. I don't know. That's the only thing I
Maybe.
can think of.
I mean, dialects are very, very, very specific to areas. Like even within a certain area, like there's Kansai Ben, but even within the Kansai area, there's other dialects inside
wow.
of that specific area, right? Like it's not enough where you're like, I don't know what they said,
Right.
but if you're like someone who's learning Japanese and you've only learned the Tokyo like modern Japanese style of speaking, and then you have someone being like "doyatte," and you're like,
Excuse me?
I have no idea what you just said, right? Or like in like Kochi in Shikoku, they end all of their sentences instead of like using mas or des, they use chu,
Interesting.
which is completely different than other places. So if you didn't know that, you'd be like, I'm kissing who?
Yeah.
What? Huh?
So I can
Yeah,
see
because
it
that
as
is
like
the sound for kiss. Choo choo.
so if you're okay, so this kind of goes back to the thing I was trying to point to earlier of like if you're only planning on being there for like a year or two, how do you even like figure anything out? Right? It almost feels like you would just be spinning your wheels for a year or two and then you're like, I'm done. I'm gone. Right? That's kind of what it sounds like.
I feel like people who come for a year, I think if you come for a year and you want to do it right, you're going somewhere every weekend and you like are making the most of your time to go do
and
like,
making it a
tourist
point
stuff.
to do that.
Like
yeah,
and like actively working to do that, which is hard because you come here and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna travel every weekend and do stuff, and then like life gets in the way, work gets in the way. You're like, oh my god, my 2 days off, I really need them to do the laundry and like recover or whatever. And then like the next thing you know, like, oh, it's Monday again and I've got to go back to work. So if you're gonna come here for a year thinking that you're gonna be like having this amazing experience, you actually really have to work hard to make that happen.
absolutely.
I think.
Yeah, even where we live, like we've barely explored most of our area, and it's a gorgeous area. We're like an hour and a half or 2 hours from Crater Lake, one of the most beautiful places on earth. We've never gone. We've been here for 5 years, right? And when we moved out here, we're like, we'll do all this stuff and everything, and we're just like, we literally don't have the time.
Like, nope.
And so now it becomes we have to dedicate time to stuff like that, and the other thing too. I don't know if I were out there, I would very much take advantage of at least the public transportation system, to see things, because from when I was there, it was like if you wanted to go to a different prefecture or whatever, you're like 30 to 40 minutes maybe, depending on where you are. So like if you're in Tokyo, you can get anywhere with like
Depends on what you're taking.
Yeah, exactly. And
it
just sounds to me like things aren't inaccessible for the most part, whereas in some parts of the States, like you might have to drive 2 hours to get to anything. You know, if I want to go to, even if I want to go into Portland, it's like 45 minutes to an hour, right? By car. And then figuring out all of that once you get there.
Things are accessible here, but I don't know, it depends on the kind of person you are, again, I think, because things are so accessible. I can go so many places. You know, I could leave now and hop on the train and be in like Aomori in like 5 hours from now. But, you know, I am like not that kind of person. I'm not really the kind of person that's just like, ooh, let's go do this thing today. And I'm trying to be more like that because I think there's some fun with that. But if you give me the option to stay at home
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna. Yeah. I'm game. If you prepare me for it, I'm always game for it. But like, if it's just like a weekend that I have nothing planned, I will 100% be like, I'm staying at home. Yeah. So
I'm definitely a major proponent of have a destination, not a plan.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's like, we're going to Aomori. What are we doing there?
I don't know.
We'll figure it out when we get there.
We hear they have apples.
Like when I went on. Yeah, when I went on my Aomori trip, we were coming back, and it's like, oh, we could go around Sendai. And then I look at Jordan, because we had, like, a free, like, it was like, you could ride it's like a, I don't know, Noru Hodai, I don't know what you call it, but, like, ride for free forever, right? And I'm just like, do you want to just go to Akita? And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's go.
That's amazing.
And we just, they were just like, oh, okay, we'll go all the way out there and then all the way down. It's like we didn't plan that ahead of time. We didn't have a hotel. We're just like, let's go.
Hell yeah. That's how I like to travel. Emily and I are kind of the same way. Like, we both are like, just you kind of have places you want to see, and anything that happens in between happens. I love traveling like that. And like that's where I've made the most memories. You know, like I've mentioned it before, like being on foot in Japan or like skateboarding through Japan, and hopefully the next time I'm out there I'll have like a one wheel or something that I don't get in trouble for, and just ask for forgiveness, not permission. You know,
good luck.
It's
gonna
happen, bro.
Be careful.
It's gonna happen. I'm probably gonna get arrested. No disrespect, but it's, you know, it is what it is. I will say though, with all of that, like, if you could maybe make one thing, let's say, easier for yourself, what would it be, since you're living out there?
Well, this one's
Besides
super boring and basic and lame. Nah, I don't even need a dryer. If I could make anything easier for myself, this is so incurably lame. I speak a little bit of Japanese. I've studied Japanese. I've worked at it. But with the job that I have now, and all of the stuff that I do on top of that, I just don't have time to like keep working on the language and practicing the language in the way that I think, like, if I'm gonna live here long term, like, you need to speak Japanese, like, no doubt, not a question in my mind. And so if I could do anything to make it easier, it would just be like zapping the language in my brain, because I think that would open up my life here so much more. Yeah. I would let them do that to me if that was something that could like exist. Just because I don't like, language takes time and it takes dedication. I don't have any time between my regular job, the podcast, like writing, promoting books, like all the stuff that I do, like working on video essays that I do outside of it. So for me, it's like a small thing, but yeah, and it's like lame because, you know, you move here and everyone expects you to speak Japanese.
Like you said, it opens up a lot of different opportunities, you know, like knowing that language.
Does. Like,
I want to know for any country.
Specifically, I want to know, I go to the convenience store every day because I'm an addict and I love 7-Elevens, and I have like my corner store that I'm always at, and I know every single person that works there, and I just wish that I was braver, because I can speak a little bit of Japanese, but I am very shy and bad at practicing, and I wish I was braver because I want to know these people and talk to them a little bit more. But I'm a little shy. And also, like, the minute we try to start having a conversation, I'm like, oh, I don't know what you just said, and I guess we have to stop now. So, yeah.
Even the surface level stuff. Okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to learn as much Japanese before I get there, so then we can talk to your 7-Eleven friends.
Please. Yeah.
Go for it, David.
Yeah.
For me, it's just remove the bureaucracy.
The red tape.
Of all the other stuff. Because it's like, I don't know why the government or whatever has to have, like, each municipality has to have a tax for residents, and then that residence tax goes to this place, but if you move to this place, you have to pay the old place for a year, and then when you move to the new place, it comes from somewhere else, but then you might double pay, and it's like, there's so much paperwork and stuff going on that it's no wonder that foreigners who move here like me are like, oh, now I have to suddenly pay $3,000 in pension
pay.
because no one's coming after me for it until the letter shows up in the thing. When the letter shows up in the thing, I'm like, okay, this is from Japan Pension Services, but this is using Japanese that is so far beyond my caliber that I can't even deal with it. Like, making it in English is irrelevant because, like, even then I still have to understand how the tax system works. So even if it was in English, I'd still be like, who knows, right? So it's that kind of stuff where I'm just like, why are you making it so difficult? Like, this should be like 3 forms you fill out January 1st, hand it in, the stuff comes to your door, you pay it, you're done.
Yep.
But it's not. It's just like...
It almost sounds like, because, like, owning my own business, I probably spend a solid week just, like, you know, going through taxes, doing all of that stuff. But it sounds like that's what you have to do just as, like, the average citizen, which is wild to me.
So in like a month, I have to pay healthcare, residence tax, pension, all my bills. What else do I have to pay? Oh, I got like earthquake insurance and all this other kind of insurance.
And none of it's automated,
like
I'm assuming, right?
None of it's well, you can make some of it automated, but like it depends on what kind of a bank account you have. Like, if you're with a bank that doesn't allow the automation, then you're kind of out of luck, right? So
I'm lucky. I've automated everything. It's great. I don't have to think about it at all. But it is like a lot, yeah. And again, my company helped me like set all of that automation up so that it would just go out of my paycheck and my bank account and stuff.
One of you guys needs to start an agency that does all of that for foreigners.
I've talked to this at length,
bro. I'm
with
telling
Jordan.
you.
I'm like,
so like
there has to be someone that we can hire. Just
I'm gonna. There are more than likely a couple of YouTuber focused agencies that exist that help with that stuff because they want talent to come out there. I won't name names because I'm not just gonna like spit stuff out of my mouth.
I know because Jordan works with them. So.
Right. So obviously, right. So we'll have to have Jordan on to talk about stuff like that at length too. But
I don't know how much you can say, but
right. But the thing that I see is like we talked about like being a professional in a certain field or whatever, but now we see like the rise of, I hate to say the stupid word, the influencer word, right? But of like someone who makes money on social media, right? Or someone who is an online personality. From that is actually a very hard sell to like move out there unless you just have a silly amount of money or you're sponsored. So I've seen some YouTubers who are able to move out there because they get like some kind of a sponsorship or they're brought over and their visas are taken care of, whatever. Or you have somebody like Felix, like PewDiePie, who just has an obscene amount of money and he's probably just has someone help him with the paperwork and he just has he's just like, whatever, I can
well,
move
the
there.
interesting thing about his situation is that if you are applying for something like permanent residency, it's a point system. So we talked before about like if you are in a specialized job, you get certain points toward becoming a permanent resident. So I think it's like if you're like a doctor or a researcher, it's like an instant 10 points. You only need 40 points to qualify. Another one is like, do you own over $1 million in your bank account or run a business? And that's another instant 10. So right there, like if you are a doctor with a lot of money, you're already halfway before you even look at any of the other stuff. And it's like, he probably has more money than God, so he can just show up and be like, yeah, whatever. But it's completely legal here for foreigners to own land. Right. So he probably just bought the land and bought the house that he lives in. Which
does make sense. And it's, for me, though, I think of like, if my wife has a very specialized job where she can say, okay, I am an investigator or whatever it is. Or if like I'm a doctor and every country looks for those jobs. And I think that's what it really comes down to. And it's hard because not a lot of like the younger generation, I feel like want that. They want the YouTube stuff or whatever it is. And for me, like if I wanted to move out there, I don't have $1 million in the bank. I'm just like, I just do YouTube stuff. Right. So it would almost be like, no, you can move out here, but you're going to need a lot of backing. You're going to need an agency helping you, or you're going to, whatever it is. And I've thought about that. Like my wife and I have talked about like, hey, do we want to just move to a different country for a couple of years? The first one came up with Scotland because we loved it out there. in particular Edinburgh, because Edinburgh has some of the most diverse culture I've ever experienced in a city, like outside of LA, and it was amazing. But like we would still need that specialization, you know. I can't just be like, oh, I'm YouTuber.
Right.
Like,
I have to wonder though, like how some of those YouTube, because I know there's like been at least recently multiple YouTubers who have moved to Japan and they're working with a company, and I have to wonder how long their tenure is going to be, because you cannot. I don't. If your goal on YouTube is producing wow, cool Japan content, right? That well will run dry eventually. And the problem is that also everyone else is doing wow, cool Japan content as well. So like if someone beats you to the punch on something and you're not enough of a personality to pull that that kind of like the amount of not influence, but the amount of like views or whatever that you need, your company is going to assess whether you are worth paying for keeping here as far as a visa, because a visa isn't like free for the company. Like they have to pay your healthcare and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like suddenly if your YouTube takes a nosedive, they're like, okay, well, bye.
That'd be so wild to me, because so someone who obviously, you know, makes a living on YouTube, and like AdSense is a big thing, and like you see the ups and downs, whatever it is. I can only imagine that if like you get comfortable enough to where like, okay, you know, I'm making a bit of money, but then now there's this other thing over your head of like, I have to perform, otherwise I literally get kicked out of the country I'm living in.
Right.
That's a whole different like stress.
It's a different level of pressure. Yeah.
Every day
living
you
in
are
Japan,
under the gun.
And I feel like living in Japan comes with that pressure anyway. Like, the same is true of me. You know, my visa is limited, and it is totally reliant on the company that I'm working with. And if they don't want me to keep working there, they can just fire me, and there goes my visa. And then it doesn't matter how many friends I have here or anything. Like, if I don't have a visa, I can't stay here legally, so I have to go. And I don't really have a choice in that matter. So that's why for a lot of people who do live here, I feel like the ultimate goal is permanent residency and, like, getting those points on that checklist. Because once you have that visa, you do not have to rely on a job or an agency or anyone to stay here. You can just be here as long as you want to be here. Of course, it comes with other responsibilities. If you're a permanent resident, like, you've got to do different paperwork and stuff like that, pay taxes, that kind of thing. But I think that's where like a lot of people are trying to work towards that for that reason.
It sounds like it's a very rare occurrence too. Like,
It just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because I think like the minimum amount of time you have to live in the country is like 7 to 10 years or something like that.
It depends. I've just done a lot of research on this. It depends on where you are on the point scale. So,
there you go.
Because it's a point system, like there's the old-fashioned way to get permanent residency was you had to live here for 10 years and also meet a series of requirements. Now, if you can get like 80 points on the point scale, it doesn't matter really how years or something like that. But it doesn't. It's not so difficult. The time component isn't as big of a deal if you meet those requirements. But in order to get 80 points, you have to be making like, $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Like, it's like you can get points from many different categories, but all those categories are like, did you go to an undergraduate school? Do you have a master's or a PhD? Which school did you go to? The school you went to also adds a bonus to your point score. How much money do you make? How old or young are you? Like, that kind of stuff is what they look at in order to give you a certain, like, the points. And those things like are difficult to obtain for sure.
I had no idea that the point system was a thing. That sounds very what is it, Black Mirror? You know, like
it's a little bit dystopian.
Right, it's a little dystopian, right? Like, oh, you have 79 points, you can't have residency,
can't get in. Sorry,
like, that's right? Like, you hear. I mean,
it's
to every country their own.
Can I do you one better? Because I've heard horror stories since I've been looking into this, and I've been talking with like lawyers and stuff like that. And I heard this story of this person who has been living in Japan for 10 years, met absolutely every month's pension payment. He was late by like a day on that one single month's pension payment, and they denied him permanent residency because of that single payment from the past 10 years that he was living here.
Yep.
That's like, that's just soul shattering.
Yeah.
You know, like that. I don't know. I don't want to like doom and gloom about all that stuff, but these are like real things, you know, and
here's a life hack. Just get married.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes it a lot easier.
Just go find you a nice Japanese national,
Yeah.
and just be done
Yeah.
with it.
Just go down to the shack show, sign the paper. You're good to
yeah.
go.
You're good to go.
Yep.
Congratulations.
It's funny that we're the FoodTaku podcast. We literally haven't talked about any of that, but I think like stuff like this is super important too, because someone like me who's always curious about what it's like to actually live out there. So this is really eye opening for me. Like I had no idea about point system. I had no idea about like I've heard of the bureaucracy
Yeah.
behind it, but at the same time, because all you think of is like gyudon, onigiri. Go down to the to whatever downtown Tokyo or whatever it is.
It's just like my Japanese anime.
Yeah. It's just like it's all
Yeah.
anime, bro.
Leads me back to what I opened with, which is like coming here as a tourist is so fun, and you get to have all those crazy experiences. Living here, it's still fun. I still love it. Obviously, I'm here. I stuck it out through COVID when I know a lot of people left, and like David's still here too. But it's different. It's hard, and you have to be really resilient and really, I think, like kind of like optimistic for a lot of stuff to just kind of pull yourself
So
through.
what you're saying is live on the west coast of the U.S. and just fly to Japan twice a year.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I have a friend who
If you
comes.
got the money.
I have a
Yeah.
friend who comes
Which,
4
yeah,
times
it's
a
not
year.
cheap.
Yeah. I've got a friend who does exactly that. She
4
comes 4
times a
times a
year?
year.
I can't sit on that. I can't sit on that plane for that long, that many times a year.
But
Long.
she's
my-
a
lose my
fan.
mind.
She's an Utapri fan, so she comes for like the concerts and stuff. So she's
Okay.
she's got like a really like dedicated reason to come here. Like she's a huge Utapri supporter. So
Because I've been wanting to. I've been debating on visiting. If it comes down to it, like maybe we do some episodes like live for the podcast, which is what we're planning, which I'm really excited about. I would do twice a year. I do like a late spring, early fall trip. Split them up. That'd be right. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Like I think that's what I'm gonna do. But David, is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we kind of?
Yep.
I mean,
Finish off
I'm
for the
100%
morning/evening?
%1,000,000% okay doing with the snap round of food hot takes.
Let's go. Okay. Favorite
okay.
favorite.
Okay. Quick
sorry,
round,
favorite,
food hot takes.
Convenience store food. Go.
It's onigiri. I'd eat like every day.
Okay.
7-Eleven.
Food.
Oh, food. Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Well, one for onigiri.
no, it's the curry pan, like the hot curry pan.
Curry pan?
And-
Ooh.
yeah.
David's like, all right,
That
that's okay. That's fair.
So good. It's so good. You
I
don't
can't
get it
really
anywhere else.
Throw in my take, but mine would be spam musubi. I don't know if it's a thing out there.
Spam musubi's good.
Spam
Yeah, you can
musubi.
get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that at
Yeah.
the Japanese market out here, so that's my thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Worst
Best convenience
thing.
store. No,
Worst,
best convenience store.
best convenience store food. We did that. Oh, best
No,
convenience store.
No,
Oh, we're
best
just gonna go for
convenience
the store.
Yeah.
Oh,
Best
okay,
convenience
store. All right, Emily. you get to go
7-Eleven.
Family
first.
Mart.
Oh, Family Mart.
Family
7-Eleven?
Mart?
It's Family Mart. 7-Eleven for food, Family Mart for everything else.
Oh.
So
whoa.
is this one of those things
That's
where like you go to In and
controversial.
Out for the burger and you go to Five Guys for the fries?
Yep.
Okay.
Whoa. Five
Yep,
Guys
throwing
can
that
go
out there.
die. Five Guys can go die
What?
in a hole. It's
No.
In and Out all the way,
Emily,
baby.
no.
It's In and Out
No.
all the way.
I
No.
grew up with In and Out, but their fries 75%
Wrong.
of the time are like soggy socks. Okay,
That's
Like, you
good.
just
It's
walk through a
good.
puddle. No, it's not good. I want crispy fries.
it is good. No one likes
No, you get your
crispy
fries crispy. So this
You have
way,
to
when they're
crunch
crispy,
them
you
and
can
then
pour
you
sauce
cut
on
your
them.
mouth on them. No.
No.
No. In and Out fries,
Dip
they're
for
kind
the
of
ketchup.
They're no.
It just turns into one fry. Please,
I'll just eat
back
my
me.
poutine over here.
Okay, poutine's fine, but dude, when you get poutine, is it crispy fries or is it soggy fries?
I like soggy
Well, they
fries.
start crispy, but they don't end that
They
way.
start
They're
crispy.
soggy. They're
They
soggy
start
fries.
crispy. No, by
The
the,
soggy
end of
fries
it,
are
I
the
get
best
that.
fry.
They kind of. No, they're not. It's like a mush. It's like a mush.
Paul,
it's like
you and
overcooked
me-
risotto. You know.
You and me, let's
No.
go.
I don't want
Line 'em
mashed
up.
potatoes when I go to In-N-Out. I want French fries In-N-Out. So you can
Oh.
order well done In-N-Out fries and then
holding
get them
myself
animal
back.
style. That's the big brain move.
I
Order them
can't
so
believe
that way they're
the
crispier,
blasphemy.
crispier
crispy?
for
Bad.
longer periods of time.
It's too crunchy and it hurts
No.
your mouth, and it's way easier.
What are you doing? How are you eating
It's-
them? You don't eat
listen
them like
to me.
this. You don't put the fry in
It's-
your mouth like.
So much easier to
a suicide
shove
attempt.
more fries in your mouth at once when they're soft. And
yeah,
that's
but then you
just
gotta
facts.
like cut the fry like a baked potato because it's turned into one potato again. I want like individual French fries. I grew up on steak fries where there's like it turns into like a
they're
boat,
not.
and then you just pour
No.
ketchup in the center of it,
No.
like a little
No.
vassal for ketchup.
No. Oh my
Ketchup
god.
delivery system.
It's just a ketchup
No.
delivery system. Thank
No.
you, David. Oh my god.
Okay.
See, David and I, we're gonna open a burger joint, and then you can sell your fries somewhere else, Emily. We're not
The
having
food is
this.
the food is primarily used to just deliver sauce. It
Yes.
doesn't even have to be
What do
good.
you think?
Oh
What do you think
my
animal
God.
fries are?
Well,
It's just a potato vessel for the sauce and the cheese and the onions. The onions are good. I'll give you that.
but the crispy fries ruin it because they're hard to chew.
No, but then how do you pick? You have to eat it with a fork.
Are you like 80?
Yes. Okay, listen. Take the less
do you
crunchy
gum it?
texture because
You have
it
to
hurts
gum
my
your
head when I'm
fries?
chewing it
Gum
a
it
lot
a
and it
little
makes my
bit.
brain rattle in my head. I prefer a more delicate, well-bodied fry is what I'm looking for. God.
What fries are you getting, Emily? Okay. No. Here's how you make
cook
a
it in
French fry. You
concrete?
cut the fry. You cook it. You blanch the fry with a little bit of vinegar and salt, and then you cool it down, and then you deep fry it. So when you cut into and you bite it, it's like pillowy and delicious on the inside. You know what In-N-Out does? They cut the fry and they throw that thing right into the fryer. I'm like, guys, there are steps.
No, they put it in water first to dry out the starch. Haven't you ever seen it in the window, Paul?
I think I don't know. I've seen them just dunk that thing straight in oil. Maybe when they're busy. I don't know.
No, they like rinse them in water
'Cause-
first to get some of the starch.
Okay,
out.
that's fair. But Five Guys does double fry. That's why they always have baskets of fries ready to go. So they blanch in oil and then they fry again. That's why they're crispy and delicious. And you can get them Cajun style with the Cajun spice on there. Oh, I want French fries so bad
No.
right now, guys. I'm so hungry. I bought a ton of Kalman Gai, and it's downstairs. And I think I'm gonna shove it in and or around my face in the next 3.5 minutes.
It's
But
not a
with
bad
that,
idea.
with that, David, thanks so much for coming on with the Tokyo Fresh
course, of
podcast. I did have an episode with you guys, so make sure you guys
did.
go check them out. They're a great group of dudes, and you can find them. We'll put your links down below. That'd be great. So that way we can have your podcast down there as well. Is there anything else you wanted to give us your worst food take about before we close out?
My word. I mean, people were giving me guff for not liking ramen, but
Yeah,
that wasn't what I
this
said.
guy over here doesn't like ramen. What the heck is up with that?
That's not at all what I said.
I don't know if I can
it's
hang out with you anymore.
tangential to what you
That's
said.
not what I said.
It's tangential to what you said.
Put a note in to remove the links from the description.
All right, guys, make sure to go support us on Patreon. We
I
like,
feel like I'm bullied now.
Yes.
yeah,
Don't support
David.
his ramen
Feel
decisions.
bad.
I'm gonna, no.
Feel bad.
You should feel bad. I'm gonna bring you ramen.
We're gonna torture him.
Make me good ramen, then change my opinion.
That's
Yeah.
fair. I'll do that. We're gonna make you some instant ramen. We're gonna have an instant ramen challenge with David
ramen
when we get
battle.
out to Tokyo.
Oh,
See if we
yeah.
can convert
That
him
would be
with dollar
fun.
ramen. That's
That'd be
my goal.
fun. Yeah.
And if you
I
want
believe.
to, if you want
Okay.
to support that poor monetary decision, check out our Patreon down below, where you can also watch episode 0 of our scuffed podcast of the
Yeah.
FoodTaku podcast. I almost said Food Tokyo podcast, but it's pretty much you're out there in Tokyo.
Wishful
it's
thinking.
fine.
Yes,
Wishful
it's working.
thinking.
Yeah,
It's
wishful
working.
thinking. Right. I've been Paul. This
I've
has
been
Emily,
Emily.
and this
Yeah.
has been David.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
See
you
you
guys
later.
so much for watching. Come back next week. We'll see you then.
Bye.